Faith is stronger than fear. Fear will whisper to you in the midnight hour. Fear will tell you that you are not enough, that the mountain is too high, the valley too deep, the storm too violent. Fear will try to paralyze you before you even take the first step. It will stand in front of the open door of opportunity and convince you that you are unqualified to walk through it. But faith of faith speaks louder than fear. Faith is the fire that burns inside of you when everything around you looks cold and dark. Faith is the light that says, I know the way doesn't look clear, but I believe there is a way. Fear thrives on what you see, but faith thrives on what you believe. Fear feeds on circumstances, but faith feeds on promises. Fear shows you the size of the giant, but faith reminds you of the size of your God. Fear tries to lock you in the prison of yesterday, but faith pulls you into the freedom of tomorrow. And every time fear raises its head, faith has authority to put it back under your feet. Let me tell you something. Fear is not the absence of courage, it's the invitation to trust. You don't need faith when everything is easy. You don't need faith when the path is clear. Faith is built in the fire, in the struggle, in the nights when tears soak your pillow, in the days when answers seem delayed. That's where faith grows muscles strong enough to carry you to the destiny waiting for you. Some of you have been living beneath your potential because fear has been your roommate. You've let fear whisper that you can't start that business, that you can't recover from that loss, that you can't forgive, that you can't move on, that you can't rise again. But the devil is a liar. Faith is stronger than fear. You've got to open your mouth and declare it until your soul believes it. You've got to walk by faith when your knees are trembling. You've got to step into the water before it parts. You've got to build when the rain hasn't even come. That's faith, believing it before you see it, speaking it before you feel it, and holding on until it comes to pass. And when fear tries to chain you, faith gives you wings. When fear tries to bury you, faith resurrects you. When fear tells you to sit down, faith commands you to stand up. Fear may come knocking, but it cannot stay where faith resides. Fear is one of the loudest voices you will ever encounter. It does not knock gently. It barges in uninvited and tries to take the seat of authority in your life. Fear will tell you that you cannot succeed, that you do not have the resources, that you lack the experience, that you are destined to fail before you even begin. It magnifies your flaws, it highlights your past mistakes, and it tries to convince you that your future will be nothing more than a reflection of your worst failures. But faith, oh faith, speaks with another voice. Faith does not deny the storm. It simply declares that the storm does not have the final say. Faith looks at the same mountain fear looks at, but instead of saying it is impossible, faith says it is an opportunity for a miracle. Faith looks at the same valley fear trembles over, but instead of crying about how deep it is, faith declares that even in the lowest place, light can still reach you. Fear is natural, but faith is supernatural. Fear will always tie itself to what you can see, touch, and measure. Fear says, look at the facts, look at the reports, look at the obstacles. But faith says, I hear the report, I see the facts, but I believe in something greater than facts. I believe in truth, and truth says all things are possible. Faith understands that facts may explain the present, but they cannot determine the future. Facts might say you are weak, but truth says his strength is made perfect in your weakness. Facts might say you are surrounded, but truth says greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Facts might say the door is shut, but truth says no man can shut the door that God has opened. Fear thrives in silence. It grows in your hesitation. The longer you sit and rehearse what could go wrong, the larger fear becomes. But faith is exercised in action. Faith requires you to step forward even when your legs are shaking. Faith demands you to open your mouth and speak life into dry places. Faith makes you invest in tomorrow while fear is trying to trap you in yesterday. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that fear will not govern your choices. There are people who live their whole lives in the shadow of fear, and they call it caution, they call it wisdom, but it is nothing more than bondage with a pretty name. You cannot walk in freedom if fear holds the key to your decisions. Faith unlocks doors that fear wants to keep closed. Faith refuses to let fear dictate the terms of your journey. Faith tells you that you can build when resources look scarce. Faith tells you that you can rise after failure. Faith tells you that even though fear may scream, faith has the final word because faith connects you to the power that is greater than every obstacle you face. Fear will always come dressed in something that looks bigger than you. It will put on the clothing of giants. It will roar with the sound of lions. It will surround you with armies of impossibility. Fear wants to make you shrink so that you never attempt what you were born to do. It wants you to look at the size of the challenge and compare it to the size of your strength. It wants you to measure yourself by your bank account, your education, your past experience, your current network, and then conclude that you don't have enough. But faith never compares the obstacle to you. Faith compares the obstacle to the one who stands behind you. And when the enemy comes in like a flood, faith remembers that there is a standard that can be lifted higher. Fear is always urgent, pressing you to retreat, pressing you to quit, pressing you to give up before you see the outcome. Faith, on the other hand, is patient. Faith waits, faith endures, faith holds steady when everything is shaking. Fear has a clock that screams time is running out, but faith trusts the timing of God, knowing that delay is not denial, that waiting is not wasting. Faith understands that if it hasn't happened yet, it must not be the appointed time, and when the appointed time arrives, nothing and no one can stop it. Fear thrives in darkness. It multiplies in isolation. When you keep quiet, when you hold in your struggles, when you retreat into silence, fear grows stronger. Faith, however, is strengthened by light and by community. When you open your mouth and declare what you believe, when you surround yourself with people who can encourage you, when you stand in agreement with those who carry the same hope, faith flourishes. Fear tells you to stay hidden, but faith tells you to come into the light. Fear wants you to hide your wounds. Faith invites you to lift your scars as proof that survival is possible. Fear builds walls, but faith builds bridges. Fear imprisons, but faith liberates. Fear blinds, but faith gives vision. Fear is obsessed with control, constantly trying to dictate outcomes, while faith is about surrender. Faith lets go and says, even if I don't know how, I know who. Faith knows that control is an illusion, that you can never manage every detail, but you can trust the one who has every detail in his hands. Faith is not reckless, but it is bold. Faith is not careless, but it is courageous. Faith is not naive, it is powerful, because it believes that the unseen is greater than the seen. Fear causes you to look at yourself and say, I am not enough. Faith causes you to look beyond yourself and say, through him, I am more than enough. Fear keeps you bound to your limitations, but faith opens the door to limitless possibility. Fear will always bow in the presence of faith, because faith draws its power from a source that fear cannot touch. Fear is a master of disguise. It will clothe itself in logic. It will speak in the language of reason, and it will make you believe it is protecting you when all it is doing is paralyzing you. Fear will whisper, be careful, stay back, don't risk it, don't try. It will make you think that standing still is safe when in reality it is the most dangerous place to be. Fear always exaggerates the danger and minimizes the promise. It will magnify the size of the storm, but it will never remind you of the strength of your anchor. It will show you the depth of the valley, but it will never tell you about the shepherd who walks with you through the valley. Fear always leaves out the part where you are not alone. Faith, on the other hand, is not blind optimism. Faith is not pretending the mountain isn't there. Faith is not ignoring the reality of the situation. Faith is choosing to believe that even though the mountain is real, so is the power to move it. Faith is standing in front of a locked door and believing there is still a key. Faith is hearing the voice of fear scream, "You can't," and choosing to answer with, "I will." Faith is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the decision to trust even in uncertainty. It is the steady hand that holds you when everything else is shaking. Fear will always demand proof before action. It says, "Show me the outcome first, then I'll step." But faith reverses the order. Faith says, "Step first, then the outcome will come." Fear waits for the sea to part before it walks, but faith steps into the water while it is still raging. Fear waits for the walls to crumble before it shouts, but faith shouts while the walls are still standing. Fear waits for evidence, but faith becomes the evidence. Faith makes you move when nothing else makes sense. Fear causes retreat, but faith produces resilience. When fear says it's over, faith says it's not finished. When fear says you've failed too many times, faith says failure is not final. When fear says you will never rise again, faith says, "Though I fall, I will rise." Faith has a language that fear cannot understand. Fear speaks defeat, faith speaks victory. Fear speaks limits, faith speaks possibility. Fear speaks endings, faith speaks beginnings. Fear is contagious, but so is faith. If you sit too long around fearful people, their anxiety will become your anxiety. Their limitations will become your limitations. Their doubts will become your doubts. But when you surround yourself with people of faith, their courage begins to stir yours. Their belief strengthens your belief. Their vision ignites your vision. Faith is never meant to be kept silent. It is meant to be shared, spoken, and lived out loud. Because when faith rises, fear has no choice but to shrink. When faith takes its rightful place in your heart, fear loses its authority. When faith fills your mouth, fear cannot dominate your mind. And when faith directs your steps, fear can no longer dictate your destiny.